Hello everybody, welcome into another video. Today we're going to be reacting to the lore of Elden Ring Cosmic Sorcerers. We're going to be going down the list in the series and exploring more and more on it, alright? It is by, I cannot pronounce that name, I'll put it on screen right now. I'll try to I will butcher it, but I'll try to say it. vtuber. I know these are a little dated, they might be outdated and not the correct information anymore ever since the DLC dropped. I'm not sure, but I need to cover everything because I like covering everything, even if it's outdated. I gotta know the whole story, what people thought at the time. It's good. I like having the whole perspective. Besides that, yeah, I hope you guys, you guys saw the title. You really already got that. Let's get right into it, All right. Let me just make sure I have the volume all right. Yep. And let's get straight into it. Not waste your time. You're here for the reaction on this.
Astrologer looked to the sky and found something called the primeval current in the stars above. Then, miraculously, what they saw in the cosmos actually manifested in reality, and the very amber of the stars rained down on the lands between. This glintstone of the cosmos would go on to inspire those that studied it, but there was also a darkness up there between the stars, and what some saw would break their minds
Cosmic
and
horrors.
inspire a fate that was worse than death. This is the story of Elden Ring's cosmic sorcery, a force that would define an entire era of life in the lands between.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Camera design and everything. Yeah, great intro. Wow. Lord of Elden Ring's Cosmic Sorcerers Chapter 1. I'm locked in. The power of the night sky.
It all began with the founding Reign of Stars, a legendary sorcery that was the founding glintstone sorcery. You might have missed this spell in your playthrough, but it's located here, hidden along an illusory path leading to the heretical rise within the mountaintops of the giants. Its description reveals that it is the eldest primeval sorcery, said to have been discovered by an ancient astrologer. Now, we don't know who this astrologer was, but we know they were not alone, for it was here, in these icy peaks closest to the sky, that the astrologers who preceded the sorcerers established themselves. And with ancient tools of astronomy, they looked to the cosmos above and read fate in the stars. But this was more than mere stargazing. The stars quite literally govern fates in Elden Ring. We learn this from the starlight shards and amber starlight items. The former is a pale blue shard. It's what remains of a passing flash of starlight, and the latter is the same, except it has a pale amber glow, and it tells of
I've never
the
seen
belief that if the stars command our fates, then amber-hued stars must command the fates of the gods. During Celovus's questline, the blue starlight shards...
I never knew that. I never knew this. I need to read more lore tabs. I have access to all this stuff. I just never read it. Damn. What do you know? That's super cool. The fact that even the stars govern over gods in fate. That's pretty cool. I like that. Everything has a fate.
This blue tonic, which can be given to other NPCs to turn
control
them into summonable puppets.
The puppets.
You are quite literally using...
This is my favorite summon. In my old account that I don't use anymore, because it's on Xbox and I play on PC, this was the one summon I went out of my way to get, because oh my god, to have him as your summon is such a... Oh, the loathsome dung eater. I love him.
Starlight to forcibly control and take away their fates when you do this. These exact same intoxicating drafts had historically been used in the Eternal City, as is exemplified by the Night Maiden and Swordstress puppets, who actually chose this controlled fate for themselves, presumably so that they could better serve the needs of the Eternal City. You can learn more about that in this video, where we discuss the Eternal City in its entirety. But the Nox of the Eternal City weren't the only ones that were drawing power from the stars in this way. The royal house of Caria, too, drew great power from astrology. The telescope item, for example, is actually a smaller part of a larger astrological tool that was once used by members of the Carian royal family for their own brand of Carian astrology that revolved around Renala and
And
the
the
full
moon.
moon rather
Yeah.
than the stars. But to most, the moon was not considered equal to the stars, and it was actually the stars that most would draw upon for their sorcery. These sorcerers would come together at Raya Lucaria, a place of learning that institutionalized the practice of glintstone sorcery. And this is our little triumvirate of three factions. There's the Nox and their descendants, there's the Carians, and there's the sorcerers of Raya Lucaria, who all
Okay.
trace their origins back to astrology. These factions overlap at times, they interact and clash, and their shared history is fascinating and complicated, but it all comes back to the cosmos in the end.
In some way, yeah. The moon, stars, the entities that come from the
But let's
stars.
return once again to the founding reign of stars, which tells us that the glimpse of the primeval current that the ancient astrologer saw became a reality, and the stars' amber rained down on this land. But what exactly is the primeval current? Well, let's break down the term. The word current means it's a moving flow, or torrent, and the word primeval means that this torrential flow likely existed from the very beginning of time. And thanks to the description for Comet Azure, we know that the primeval current is a distant starry expanse, something that is visually similar to the torrential comet generated from this spell.
Yeah.
But what's truly amazing about this cosmic
The ultimate cheese spell. The ultimate cheese spell. I'm gonna just Kamehameha kills Moog in one shot.
force is that somehow this ancient astrologer managed to manifest a rain of stars upon the earth merely after glimpsing it in the primeval current of the cosmos far away. And I speculate
Oh,
that
that's
starlight
cool.
shards
If you just get it from that view, it looks exact. It looks like a flying comet. I never noticed that. I mean, I know it's supposed to look like it, but like, look at that. If you just do it like that, it looks like a comet. Oh,
of the
that's
cosmos far
cool.
away. And I speculate that starlight shards are actually another example of this phenomenon. Their description reveals that these are what remains of a passing flash of starlight, and we exclusively loot these at the foot of giant stone astrolabes, which are these ancient stargazing tools. Thus, rather than being a piece of star that has fallen to the ground, I think these might be a byproduct of the act of looking up at the stars. Why else would we loot them here? And so, in this same manner, first established with these starlight shards and then the founding reign of stars, glintstone sorcerers would go on to replicate this phenomenon, using their powers of comprehension to conceive of new cosmic elements that could be manifested in reality. Or put another way, they formulated spells that let them throw giant rocks at each other, and it was a huge hit with everyone. But among these glintstone sorcerers were some who wished to truly understand the mysteries of the primeval current, no matter the cost. These were sorcerers like Lusat and Azur, who would literally become crystal in order to sync up with and better understand these powers of the cosmos. And then there was Selen, the Graven Witch, who threw all ethics to the wind and wished to see humanity ascend no matter the cost. And make no mistake, the stars are alive, in a sense.
Rip
Look at
Selen, bro.
Estelle, for example. This
Yeah.
is a malformed star, but a star nonetheless, birthed from a void, or so it is said. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Most sorcerers, it seems, would just be content with merely manifesting cosmic power, and so they would embed a piece of physical glintstone into a staff and then use that glintstone as a sort of catalyst for the stars above. And since glintstone was needed to channel spells, and since sorcerers needed glintstone to study, I think having access to physical glintstone would have been a really important thing. And luckily for the sorcerers, glintstone, being sourced from meteors and comets, had fallen to the lands between before. So
Ah.
these valuable crystals were mined and put to great use. And so
I love
a
this. Everything in this game has a connection to one thing or another. Everything exists here for a purpose, and oh, it makes me so excited. The fact, oh my god, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's why they're and you could pick up like shards and tiny pieces of rubble from this that are like pieces of glintstone and such. Oh my god, it all makes sense. I love this game store.
Top and amidst enormous quantities of glintstone in the lakes of Leonia, a place of learning was built, an institution known as the Raya Lucaria Academy. Sorcerers, as a whole, were powerful. They could read fate in the stars, fire cosmic projectiles at their enemies, and potentially even command the fates of others. So, naturally, there needed to be an institution for their power, a place of learning, but also a place of hierarchy and even governance, where rules about sorcery could be debated and enforced. When you journeyed through Raya Lucaria, you would have collected these symbols of their institution. These are stone masks called glintstone crowns, and not just anyone is supposed to wear these crowns. They are a symbol of achievement, and
So
they
masters.
represent one's mastery of a certain conspectus
Yeah,
or
okay.
school of learning within the academy. They also make a good weapon, if all else fails. But why
Headbutt.
was this design specifically chosen as a symbol of achievement? Well, according to many item descriptions, there isn't just life in stone, but there is a wisdom contained in stone as well. So their masks were crafted with stone and set with glintstone. The glintstone is typically set upon the eyes and or the brain, a tradition that I speculate originated with the sorcerer Azur, who was one of the first, if not the first, glintstone sorcerer. His blue-green glintstone crown was set with crystals and eventually replaced his own brain and skull altogether, which enhanced his powers by helping him catalyze with glintstone, though it clearly came at great physical cost. And I speculate
Eventually
that this
died.
crown eventually replaced his own brain and skull, because glintstone kind of does that. It corrodes, it consumes. We see its effects best on other creatures, like the dragon Smaragd, who was a devourer of sorcerers with a body that became corroded over time by their glintstones, thanks to that strict sorcerer diet. But as with Azur, this corrosion did not come without benefits, and he now breathes a powerful glintstone breath. The sorcerer Azur was an early
That's
sorcerer
pretty
of the
cool. The
primeval
fact that
current.
that dragon, because he would eat on. Damn, you are what you eat. Am I right? You are what you eat at the end of the day. Ate so many fucking sorcerers that he started becoming a sorcerer's dragon, which, not literally, but like, it started taking over his body. And, that's pretty cool. Also, pretty like, wow, that's how strong it is. Or like how potent that stuff is. That even eating stuff like that will corrode you and take over
But he
in some
wasn't the
way.
only one. There was also the sorcerer Lusat, who
Mm.
experienced a similar glintstone
Mm.
convergence of body and mind. Together, these masters of sorcery each glimpsed a part of the primeval current. And from what I gather, the primeval current seems like the sort of
Mm.
thing that can only really be glimpsed once before it either breaks or terrifies the viewer. Azure and Lusat only have one primeval current spell each, after all.
Ah.
For instance, when Lusat glimpsed into the primeval current, he conceived of the spell Stars of Ruin as he
Right.
beheld the final moments of a great star cluster, and upon seeing it, he too was broken. And when Azur glimpsed into the primeval current, he saw darkness and conceived of the spell Comet Azur, but was left both bewitched and fearful of the abyss. Both Azure and Lusat clearly had a prominent role at the Academy, but Azure specifically was the first founding glintstone sorcerer to have an impact upon Raya Lucaria, for there is a line of research called the Carolus Conspectus,
Ah.
dubbed the oldest of the Academy's lineages of study, begat
So he was
by
one of
the
the.
sorcerer Azure.
I see. I see.
Sorcerers
I
who
see.
follow in his footsteps by studying this conspectus pursue the
I gotta know. I gotta know. It's because I'm gonna ask. Yo, who in chat was a sorcerer in Elden Ring? Me personally, I beat the game and I got all the endings in my game, like all the 7 endings. So I actually took the time to play each build at the time. I did a sorcery, I did a dex, I did a faith run, I did a strength run, I did a holy run, I did a lightning run. Like I did a bunch of runs. So like fist run or not, with the little like gauntlets and like I've done all those runs. So arcane, all that, bleed. I've done all of them. So you can't tell me I don't I'm like easy mode. I played everything. I got every ending and played every way. Okay, I'm an everything man. I like tasting everything. Point is, a Yodo pause. Anyways, anyways, how many you were sorcerers? It doesn't take away. I'm not one of those guys. It won't take away if you enjoyed the game, how you played it. You know, I'm not gonna judge you. You know, at the end of the day, we all play this game to have fun and have a challenge and have our own way of that challenge. It doesn't have to just because somebody else played it different doesn't mean take away with how fun the game is and all that, and whether or not you should judge them for it. That's just not how that works. Either way, what do you guys run?
The mysteries of comets, leading to new kinds of comet sorceries like glintstone comet shard and shard spiral. Each conspectus appears to be named after a founding individual. These stone crowns are designed after actual people, after all, people you can see in the flesh upon their matching portraits in the Academy. So even though the Carolus Conspectus follow the path began by the Sorcerer Azure, their conspectus of learning must have been sort of formalized by someone named Carolus. But as time went on, more conspectuses needed to be created as new lines of inquiry were discovered, and so logically, the Olivinus Conspectus should have been the second to be created, for this line of research is also concerned with the study of meteors in the primeval current, except this conspectus began with the sorcerer Lusat.
I don't want to take away too much from the video, but like and everything. But the drip, they do have drip. I will let you know. They do have drip. Sorcerers have drip. Okay, I gotta say, they have drip.
Spells study clusters of stars, with lesser spells like glintstone stars and star shower, all echoing the great Stars of Ruin spell that originally broke Master Lusat. Lusat and Azure were true masters at the Academy, after all. They were actually dubbed Grandmasters, specifically, with special robes that reflected that, and it seems like no one ever went on to achieve such a rank or sacrifice as much as they did. And they sacrificed a lot. They can barely even move anymore. And when Selen talks about them, she talks about their bodies rather than a traditionally living person. Perhaps they've actually ascended to a higher plane of existence. That might explain why they weren't really around anymore to form their own conspectuses, something that was left to Carolus and Olivinus and others instead.
Okay.
With such enigmatic founders, many dedicated themselves to the study of glintstone, taking vows of virtue and austerity. In return, they received the deep blue robe of Raya Lucaria and were able to study on its grounds.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Some nobles of Leyndell were even permitted to study here, clearly, though their meager accomplishments never warranted them earning a stone crown, and fittingly, you only see them casting glintstone pebble in-game. To assist in their learning, a powerful spellcaster would often go and cast a spell called Terra Magica.
I gotta find it funny. The nobles were only given pebble spells. That's crazy. Other ones bringing down entire comets, entire laser beams. You get a pebble. You get a pebble.
From the tallest belfry of the Academy. This sigil would be cast with such strength and allow for such a vivid experience of spellcasting success that it turned many a fledgling into a true sorcerer in a flash of understanding. But not all learning took place at the Academy. In fact, a couple of signature spells were specifically given to those who departed from the Academy.
This is making me want to, man, give me a TV show, all right? Give me a TV show here, right? Or make it real, bro. I want to go to a place like this, study sorcery with others in a time of, and in the time of peace. Sounds pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. Sounds pretty rad. Me personally, he's got to say. It sounds pretty rad.
To embark on journeys. Starlight is a spell that guides such sorcerers in dark places.
Yeah, the flashlight.
It reads, even during the blackest nights, sojourns underground, or imprisonment in jail, the stars are never far from a sorcerer's side. And then there was Glintstone Arc, which would allow these fledgling sorcerers to cleave through the ranks of the fools that would outnumber them on their journeys. Such journeys were encouraged by the Academy. There was even a conspectus for this practice called the Hierodus Conspectus, with a crown that was granted to scholars who engaged in nomadic study away from the Academy. In-game, this crown is worn by errant sorcerer Wilhelm, who fights with night sorceries and wields the Staff of Loss, which enhances night sorceries. This staff doesn't even have a glintstone embedded in its tip, and supposedly it can only cast night sorceries as a result. That's how important asceticism was to some sorcerers, and they believed that it was a powerful path towards discovery. This conspectus also seemed to see value in depriving the senses. The crown of Hierodus is blindfolded, after all. We see this same practice of veiling the eyes down in the Eternal City as well, and the Nox's descendants were of course accomplished practitioners of night sorceries, which seemed to be thematically tied to this blindfolded, ascetic embrace of the void. Moving on though, this habit of sending fledgling sorcerers away must have posed a bit of a problem, however, as when war broke out in the lands between, Raya Lucaria would close and seal its gates, preventing access to most, including its journeying fledgling sorcerers. The only way to get back inside was to use a glintstone key to activate the warp magic within the seals. These keys only seem to belong to accomplished sorcerers, and they remember their users, meaning that thieves or bluntstones like Thops could not get inside. In the current age, Thops mentions that the Academy closed its gates after declaring that they wouldn't interfere with the shattering. Now, this suggests to me that the Academy might have had a bit of a habit of striving for a sort of neutrality or indifference in world affairs. Indeed, they had developed an entire conspectus who sought power in order to quell conflict. These were the battle mages of the Heimer Conspectus, who wielded stone clubs and spells of cannon and gavel. A gavel is commonly used as a symbol of judgment, but rather than interfering with outside affairs, I believe the Heimer Conspectus mainly functioned as the Academy's judiciary. Their crown is even blindfolded, which is widely regarded in the real world as a symbol of unbiased justice.
Yeah.
And with their preparedness for combat, the Heimer
Conspectus, like that statue with the weights on it, right? And it's blindfolded, right? Justice. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Conspectus were cited as being the only ones who dared to venture outside whenever war had broken out. And just like the blindfolded members of the Hierodus Conspectus, the battle mages of Heimer believed that seclusion was no way to foster discovery, and instead believed that it was only a convenient form of escape. That said, we do find sorcerers of other conspectuses outside the Academy as well, though you can sort of infer that they're a bit wary to be away from home because they're often accompanied by marionettes. The marionettes are dolls, constructs that were crafted and animated by the sorcerers who are their masters.
Those guys are absolute cocaine addicts. They spaz out. They have like a stroke mid-attack and then they start going. Tell me I'm wrong though. Tell me I'm wrong.
There are a couple of variants. There's an avian variant with curved swords that can fly and throw fire pots, and then there's the typical marionettes with spiked spears, short swords, and short bows. Lots of short bows. These will commonly drop down upon you in ambush, and while they like to go a bit ballistic, they do act as crudely effective support for a ton of the sorcerers that you'll meet in-game. You'll even find a few of these down in the Raya Lucaria Crystal Tunnel, where glintstone miners are hard at work extracting glintstone and ore. These miners don't use conventional tools though. Instead, they mine with a digger's staff, embedded with a glintstone, casting spells such as Shatter Earth or Rock Blaster. A fascinating little detail here though is that these mining spells carried enormous stigma at the Academy because they marked their user as a failed scholar, perhaps as someone who had to turn to menial labor, lacking the intelligence to pursue the complex mysteries of the cosmos. Indeed, the Overseer's attack by crushing scraps of glintstone rather than with any advanced sorceries. At the end of the crystal tunnel is a crystallian, an inorganic being that was hewn from crystal long ago. But these are more than mere constructs. They are ancient and even possess a faint sort of intellect dubbed the wisdom of the stone. Long ago, they even made a concord, or an agreement, with the Carian royal family. We don't know the nature of this agreement, but some can be found chilling upon the moonlight altar, allowed to stay in close proximity to their crystals, perhaps. And for their part, we do know that the Crystallians did teach the Carians a spell called Magic Downpour to mark the occasion. And Raya Lucaria sought kinship with these beings as well, for they are close to the ideals of the primeval current, and so are revered guests of the sorcerers. The best example of this might be down in the dimly lit Academy Crystal Cave underneath Raya Lucaria, a crystal cave that is not mined, perhaps out of respect for the Crystallian duo at the end of the tunnel. There are even living quarters down here, and I suspect these belong to a group of sorcerers called the Crystal Cadre, which was a group that was founded to research the wisdom of stone possessed by the Crystallian.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was going to be.
Just like the primeval current,
I feel like they went in there to say, okay, why are these things alive? How do they work? Let's go explore. Everything here is all about exploring, learning, deeping into knowledge, real nerds, but like cool nerds,
These sorcerers clearly don't have all the answers on these beings. They call them inscrutable, and note that they have but one clear purpose, and that is to safeguard their crystals unto the end. Though there is one theory on these beings, and it's that they are waiting, yearning for the return of their creator, who will carve for them new brethren. A few sorcerers down here near the Crystallian are in possession of the Twin Sage Helm, which marks them as members of the Twin Sage Conspectus. These were the elites of the Academy, permitted to study and excel in sorceries of all kinds, and I assume it was these members, these elite members, who would climb out of this cave and cast the legendary Terra Magica that would cover the entire Academy's grounds from this tall belfry that we mentioned earlier. But the Twin Sage Helm wasn't the only mark of a proficient scholar. There was also the Witch's Glintstone Crown, which was granted to a scholar who excelled in her studies, which also merited the title of Witch. And again, you can see most of these Conspectus portraits hanging in Raya Lucaria. For example, here is the Witch, the Twin Sage, Carolus, Olivinus, and all of these portraits are hung in the debate parlor of the Academy, where members would likely have engaged in argument in order to test and help validate their ideas about sorcery. It's also where I assume they argue.
Look at him. Good doggo, good doggo. Highlight of this video. Good doggo. He's so cute. I want to pet him. He'll probably eat me, but that's fine.
About whether certain things even should be allowed to be learned here, or whether certain members should be exiled. But we'll get to that shortly. Because first, the final conspectus that we haven't yet mentioned is the Lazuli conspectus. These sorcerers studied lunar sorceries, a quote-unquote heterodox pursuit that views the moon as equal to the stars, with a robe coloured in the hue of the full moon, which signifies their heresy. And of course, these sorceries include many signature spells of Caria. And so we finally arrive at Caria. This is Carian Manor, and to the south are their stargazing grounds, both situated upon the western coast of Leonia, which, according to the map, has always been closely associated with Carian royalty. They have been around for a long time, a really long time. Specifically, Caria traces its roots all the way back to the ancient astrologers that existed alongside the fire giants.
Right. I remember that.
Is most apparent when you're looking at two items. First, the Sword of Night and Flame, which became a storied sword and treasure of Caria Manor. It was clearly crafted to commemorate the astrologers' early experiences with the primeval current and their shared experiences with the fire giants as well. And the fact that Caria inherited this sword suggests that they trace their ancestry back to the time of this sword. And then there's the Stargazer heirloom, which tells of the rise of Caria as a house of royalty through Renala and her full moon. The young astrologer gazed at the night sky as she walked. She had always chased the stars every step of her journey. Then she met the full moon, and in time, the astrologer became a queen. This royal house continued this tradition of stargazing and raised princesses and carrion knights to serve as their retainers. One of the foremost carrion knights was named Loretta, a woman we talked about recently in the video I did on the Eternal Cities, as it was rumored that she was an Albinoric. Albinorics, as you may know if you watched that video, were widely despised in the lands between, though Caria is one of the few factions that seem
They allow people in, no matter. No, I wouldn't say no matter what. They definitely got their pickies, but they're more open than the other one.
seems to be pretty friendly with them. Albinoric sorcerers are found all throughout Caria Manor, and one, named Pidia, is literally called a carrion servant, linking the Eternal Cities with Caria in an alliance perhaps that might have allowed them to learn more about the stars from the Albinorics. At any rate, Renala, with her full moon sorceries, was the champion of Caria, a prominent one too, apparently. And it's no surprise when you look at the powerful characteristics of her full moon. It has immense gravity, and it eclipses all other magics. It lowers defenses. It is enchanting, and Renala used all of these traits to charm the Academy,
she's huge.
to bewitch them, and become not just the Queen of Caria, but also the Master of Raya Lucaria itself. And so, of course, here is her portrait, displayed most prominently in the Academy of Raya Lucaria, right next to what many assume is a portrait of Selen. For if you unmask her in-game, then she actually looks very similar to this witch, someone who was worthy of an entire conspectus and apparently was the most promising sorceress in the history of the Academy. But even Selen, with all her promise, or perhaps because of her promise, would not be tolerated in the end.
If you recall, I was exiled from the Academy of Raya Lucaria. It was for attempting to restore the primeval current of Glintstone sorcery. The toothless pedantry peddled by the Carian royal family can rot for all I care. I want Glintstone sorceries that open our minds, unbound by terrestrial taboos.
For Selen to know so much about what she calls toothless pedantry peddled by the Carian royal family, I assume she was a part of the Academy during Renala's reign over it, and that it was Renala's influence that finally led to the Academy's intolerance of primeval current research. And Selen wasn't the only one expelled from the Academy.
Wow.
The Masters Azure and
That's crazy. They're the bad. Damn. The only person we did not kill was a bad guy. That's crazy.
Lusat, two of the founding masters of Glintstone sorcery, were at some point driven from the Academy as well. And it's easy to see why. The primeval current is dangerous. Lusat's mind was broken after watching a star cluster break apart. Azure saw a darkness in the primeval current and was left fearful of its abyss. And imagine something so dangerous that just looking at it can damage your mind irreparably. In this way, the primeval current is almost Lovecraftian in its horror.
Yeah.
We can't pin down the exact truth of why it terrifies, but we see its terrible effects on others and are left to wonder. What's more, this cosmic current is primeval. It's one of the first, if not the first thing to exist in the universe, and the fact that our cosmic origins might be terrifying really is kind of a bizarre and bewitching thought, right? I mean, I want to know what's in this current that's driving everybody insane. Although I will mention again, we kind of know that at least creatures like Estelle are up there, and Estelle kind of is a signature horrific Lovecraftian monster, so yeah. At any rate, Raya Lucaria was an institution now, with power and influence in the lands between, and with these things, naturally, there would have come a need for self-preservation. And the biggest threat at this stage wouldn't have been external, it would have been internal. The biggest threat was probing the primeval current too deeply. And so, while primeval current...
I don't think it should be banned, though. It should be definitely more monitored, right? It should be monitored, but it shouldn't be banned. Because I get it. You might end up doing something or unlocking or attracting the attention of something that is just too great for, us to handle. but it definitely should be monitored. But I don't think banned.
Current research seems to still be okay as long as it's under the Carolus or Olivinus conspectus. A line was drawn, and the masters Azure and Lusat were eventually driven from the academy, as was Selen the Witch. When we first meet her, Selen states that glintstone sorcery is rooted in the study of the stars, and she laments that most sorcerers have forgotten that fact. She resents that the sorcerers took their power and then sort of turned a blind eye to deeper research in order to protect themselves, and it's kind of easy to empathize with her and to see her as this underdog fighting for the truth against an enormous institution. Even Thops thinks she's a good person in the end, but can you really blame Raya Lucaria for taking a stand when you see this? This is a school of graven mages, a mass of sorcerers fused together so that they might be fashioned into the seeds of stars. As the lore goes, this was apparently a valid line of research into the primeval current, and that in the name of this research, fellow sorcerers should be collected and fused together in a cluster to, I guess, create a star made of life. These creations were considered the nightmare of the Academy, and rightfully so. They represented Selen's complete loyalty to the truth, no matter the cost, to her fellow man. Naturally, such a thing had to be forbidden, but then you have to empathize with Selen a little bit and agree that it is a bit ironic that the exact line of inquiry that gave rise to the Academy was the very thing that posed a threat to its existence.
Yeah.
Eventually, the Academy would seek to rid itself of Caria's influence, but the Carian royal family had long prepared for the disloyalty of the Academy.
Very
There's a
overpowered
reason why
knights.
the Carian Knight's shields are extremely magic resistant. There's a reason why there are many spells based on a policy of Carian retaliation, where magic can be absorbed and then turned back against its caster. There's a reason why their knights were specifically sworn to the moon, not the stars. Renala, as a proficient astrologer, might have even foreseen the eventual disloyalty of the Academy, although that's just speculation on my part. But before that, there was another war that would come first.
Nice timing
A
on
war
that. So
against
I was
the
distracted by the
champions of
gameplay.
gold, which Caria was extremely prepared to face as well.
Yeah.
The Order of the Erd Tree had conquered fire giants.
As far as I'm aware, right, a single knight could take on so much because they were just that strong. Like a Carian royal knight, I'm pretty sure could take on like entire like they would be able to hold off entire like I forgot what they got compared to, but at least like the gold knights on the horses like type level enemies.
The Stormlords, and Caria and the Academy were next, it seems, led by Radigan.
And if I remember right, they could never conquer that area, even with all their might. And there's 2 wars fought, and they still cannot conquer the Academy, which is like a feat that's crazy.
Now know was a part of Marika, a great war began. But here, the Order of the Erd Tree actually met their match. Despite numbering fewer than 20, the Carian Knights were a match for even the champions of gold in battle, and enchanted troll knights fought on Caria's side as well, called into service from an ancient oath made with Renala back in her youth atop the mountaintops of the giants. And so, instead of weathering a stalemate, a truce was proposed between the 2 parties and sealed in holy matrimony.
Radigan once cleansed himself with celestial dew, repented his territorial aggressions, and swore his love to Renala. The Order of the Erd Tree and the fate of the moon were conjoined, and all the wounds of war forgiven.
And of course, we all know that Radigan is Marika, but no one else did, and so secrecy was of the utmost importance to Radigan, and he imposed this need upon his newly acquired vassals. These are the Carian Preceptors, essentially professors of sorcery who serve the Carian royals. They wear these blue robes embroidered with cosmic designs, which is a reference to Caria's astrological heritage, surely. But when Radigan married Renala, he ordered the Carian Preceptors to wear an additional piece of attire, a mask with the mouth sewn shut with gold thread in that signature crisscross pattern that is emblematic of Radigan, to make it clear that all their matters were to be kept strictly private. For of course, Radagon was hiding something that might be able to be seen if anyone looked at him too closely. Indeed, this desire for secrecy was well founded, for someone did look at him too closely during this time. A sculptor who secretly rendered this dichotomy between Radagon and Marika into his work. But no one else discovered Marika Radagon's secret, not until we came along. And long before that, Radagon would leave Renala, and her heart would go along with him. And it was then that those at the Academy realized that Renala was no champion after all. When we see her, we realize that she was likely left quite witless and innate after this loss of Radagon, and so it was no surprise that the Academy took this chance to rebel against the Carrion Royals. With Renala essentially held hostage and safely locked in their grand library, the Academy went to war with Caria, focusing their assault upon Caria Manor, for that is where a siege commemorated by this graveyard of swords took place. The enchanted soldiers who fought on behalf of the Academy were named the Knights of the Cuckoo, wearing red and blue surcoats that depict their namesake and carrying shields that boasted high magic damage negation. They were explicitly purposed as mage hunters and have been quoted as stating, "Our enemy is none other than Caria itself." They also throw Albinoric pots, which reference the torture of Albinorics and the hatred of Albinorics that the Cuckoos have.
Damn,
the
the
Albinorics
extra
are
racist.
found throughout all Caria, so these Knights of the Cuckoo were
Bro,
fighting
don't do him
against
like that.
some true
No.
enemies here. But despite some of their
No,
descriptions
come on,
saying
man. He
that
didn't
the
deserve
Cuckoo
it.
Knights were sworn to the Academy, I think that's actually just wishful thinking by Raya Lucaria. The Scholar's armament and shield spells, for example, were actually spells that were quote-unquote taught to the Knights of the Cuckoo as payment for their contract. So they were getting paid to fight, and learning these low intellect spells suited them because they were not proficient sorcerers. For example, instead of casting spells, they would crush broken clumps of glintstone, dubbed faux sorceries or fake sorceries by the Academy. But most telling about their loyalty is the Cuckoo Knight armor, which says, "Its left breast is emblazoned with a peering cuckoo, whence came their name," which straight up admits that perhaps the bird's shrewd gaze is an expression of their refusal to be mere servants of the Academy. And in the end, the Knights of the Cuckoo failed pretty hard. They were not only defeated in the siege of Caria Manor, but they were turned into puppets there, and many now fight on Caria's behalf. We get an idea of
Ironic.
how much they must resent this when they somehow break free and confront Pidia, a Carian, an Albinoric, and a mage. 3 things that they absolutely hate. But unfortunately, guys, that's where I have to leave things for now. There's an entire summary I also wanted to do about Celia, the town of sorcery, as well, but honestly, I feel like Celia is very difficult to speculate on and puzzle out, so considering how long that would take to put into words, I think it might have to wait until another video.
Okay,
Please
yeah.
subscribe,
Yeah, for sure,
because I will talk about it eventually, and I think I'll also give Selen her own Prepare to Cry episode as well. Hers is going to be amazing. There's some good things ahead, as always. Special thanks to Quelag for reviewing the script, and of course to Miss Pap1, who did all of the incredible visuals in this video.
Yeah,
He's a true master.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky to be working with him.
He has
But
indeed.
I'll see you in
The
the next
visual
one, guys.
game has
Thank you
been
for watching.
on point. Thank you for making the video. Alright, that was a pretty good video. I enjoyed seeing the rise and downfall of Raya Lucaria and all the other houses that grew from it. Their origins, and their origins being the ultimate demise. From the current itself giving them the magic to them banning the current and its knowledge and seeking into that knowledge out of fear, and it causing their separation and downfall in the end. It has definitely been one of the more interesting watches I've seen so far, and you know, it adds a lot to the lore from like the people that couldn't do it are the miners that we see in the mines down below in like grinding the glintstone and all that, to the Cuckoo Knights, to the Royal Carian Knights and how strong they were, to the Stalemates, to the Radagon marrying I forgot her name, Renala, and all that. And then it's all very interesting. The old masters, their drip, because let's be honest, they had massive drip. Screw the Renala's wares. Their drip was really the best drip. And all the different houses and everything. It's definitely been one of the very good watches. But that has been my reaction to the lore of the Elden Ring's cosmic horrors. Sorcerers, my bad, Sorcerers. I hope you enjoy the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitch. Yes, shameless plug, and all my other socials. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.